Live from a grungy kitchen table located in Annapolis, Maryland's scenic and historic capital, it's the Maryland Crabs Podcast. With each episode, your hosts, Tim Hamilton, John Fernay, and the occasional guest will dive in and pick apart the stuff that really matters most to you. We're too lazy to actually solve any of these problems, but we can definitely stir the pot. From schools, politics, parking in the fire lane, to those horrible people who drive BMWs. And here with this week's episode, live from the kitchen table, Tim Hamilton and John Fernay.
We're here with Kris Valerio Shock, who I have known cursorily, I guess, when you were Kris Valerio before you became Kris Valerio Shock. And you are the new executive director of Leadership Anne Arundel, which is really kind of cool.
She's the president and CEO, my friend. That's why I do the research.
Okay. Fine.
That's true. Yes, the outgoing executive director is Eric Edstrom, and he will retire actually at the end of June.
Wait, so you guys did change the names on me?
We did. Well, yes, he is executive director, yes, and he will retire at the end of June, and I've been very fortunate to overlap with him. So I came on board May 1st and have had the benefit of being, co-locating at the same time, and he's been tremendous and helped me really learn the ropes.
Okay, well, that's going to beg my question is what's the difference between an executive director and a president and CEO?
Well, I'm 1 month in. I may have to grill Eric about that. I mean, it's really, a matter of the organization has been around for 25 years, and we're really kind of getting into the next place. So, a lot of it is the very same role, but some of it is also kind of looking to the future and kind of having a more strategic approach to where we're headed. So I think that was, I'd also have to ask the board kind of because they're the ones who made the decision to change the name. But I think that our conversations have been a lot around strategy and kind of as we pivot from these last 25 years and look to what's next, having a strategic approach to really leveraging. We have over 1,400 graduates from this program.
In 25 years.
1,400 graduates.
If I could do math, I would figure out how many that is a year.
Well, it's 35? Three programs actually, because the main program is the flagship program, so that's what we're most known for. And that welcomes roughly 35 to 40 folks every school calendar year. It starts in September and folks graduate in May. And then there was for a period of time, we don't have it at this moment, but there was an executive leadership series. And that was a shorter program for executives who really couldn't spare the time to do the full flagship.
That was the C people and the chief executives, marketing and operation people.
Exactly. And so we had a handful of classes. I don't know exactly how many we had. I want to say between 6 and 10 years over the 25 that we had a executive leadership series as well. And then we still do now have, actually this is the 20th year for our Neighborhood Leadership Academy, which is a program that's really about communities. So where the flagship covers, more of the business community and economic development, really all, nonprofit, for-profit, government and all of that through flagship. The Neighborhood Leadership Academy is really about providing communication skills, problem-solving skills for folks who are embedded in, the local community.
Okay. Can we take a step back and
Sure.
tell me what Leadership Anne Arundel is? I guess we probably should have jumped in because there's probably a lot of people that aren't aware of what it is and what you do and what you're supposed to be doing and what you're producing.
Sure.
1,400 graduates. High schools put that out in a year and a half.
Right. No, that's a great question. So we are a 501c3 nonprofit organization, and we're like leadership organizations across the country. Most communities have a leadership program, and we all have a similar formula, which is starting in September. It's really designed to help individuals understand the local community, understand kind of all the pieces of the puzzle. So they'll start in September. For instance, we start with an orientation or a retreat week, 2-day retreat. So folks kind of understand some principles in leadership development. So some of the leadership building skills are in that retreat, but then the rest of it's basically one day out of the month that the same group of 35 to 40 people come together and they learn on a specific topic each day. So for instance, the first day out of our year is Government Day. So we get together and we learn in the morning kind of how the county council works, and in the afternoon how the Maryland state government works. And we do some role playing and have a specific bill that is trying to get passed and people are on either side of it to really understand how our policymakers
Okay, so you're sort of getting your hands dirty with
very experiential. Yeah, it's not a lot
Civics 201.
PowerPoints. Yeah, it's not a lot of boring lectures. It's really kind of getting out there. So that's Government Day. There's an Arts and Culture Day. There's the one day that I got. So I, again, just started May 1st. I got to go to agriculture, and South County. So we were literally on a bus, off and on, starting in one farm. We went to a horse farm. We ended the day in a winery. So you're really getting to see.
Okay, now we're getting into the kind of organization that I want to join in. What's this winery stuff going on?
Right. Well, and so it's very experiential. It's, getting in there, understanding the parts of our community and how they all fit together, and really helping community-minded, proactive folks understand where they might best fit in. So a lot of folks, the fun thing is people come to leadership at all different seasons of their careers or lives. Some folks come to us when they retire for that kind of third chapter. So I've, had this career and now I want to figure out how to give back. So oftentimes they'll come to Leadership Anne Arundel, go through the year, and they figure out where the best use of their time is moving forward. Others, like I went through it in 2006 when I was working for the Annapolis and Anne Arundel County Chamber of Commerce. And I was very green in my kind of networking and learning the business community. Sure. And I got to dive in and you meet. So out of that 35 to 40 people, they're folks from the major for-profit and nonprofit government entities, everything. So like the hospital, the community college, corporate entities, a lot of the government entities put somebody through the class each year. So you have this really great mix of folks from all different parts.
It's a who's who. I mean, I can, every time I look at one of the classes, whenever it's on the website or it's on Facebook, I know like out of the 35 people, 6 or 7, and you're right, they work for local businesses, they're business owners, they're elected officials, they're officers of local corporations. But I mean, I can name probably 36 people without even thinking about it.
Well, and that's the thing. So then ultimately when you graduate, you've got really 2 sets of stakeholders that you become part of. You've got your class, and you know that after you've been through that 9-month program and you graduate with your class, you can call any one of them from all these different organizations and get help on some issue or concern that you might have. Right. But then you're part of the larger leadership organization as well, that 1,400. So even if there's an organization that wasn't represented in your leadership class, when you pick up the phone, I know we don't like phones anymore, or text or whatever it is.
What's a phone?
Or God forbid, email. And say, I'm reaching out, I was through the Leadership Anne Arundel program, you get, that understanding that you've gotten the lay of the land, you get how the county works, and there's a credibility there, which is maybe a really long answer to your...
No. I think
it's podcast. This is what it's for.
I think people, take what it needs to explain it, because I think it's a very valuable program. And who's your ideal student? I guess, are they students? They're graduating classes.
Participants. We call them graduates or alumni once they're through, but participants. There really isn't an ideal, again, because somebody who's brand new, who really to the community and needs to get the lay of the land. Like a lot of folks do come to us when maybe they're working for a company, they've come here to work for a company and they really don't know the local community. So they'll go through the program so that they can get that kind of fast track of who are the folks that we need to know. But then there are folks who've lived here all their lives and, have wanted to be part of this program for some time, and the time and, things make sense, and they go through it and they learn things about this county that they never knew, and some of them have lived here all their lives. And again, the ones that I mentioned, the retirees who are also like, okay, I've gone through my career, now I want to figure out the best use of my time moving forward in terms of giving back. And John Cornyn is one of those who actually was featured in the Capital articles recently.
Sounds great.
Yeah. So the bike organization that I wish I could remember the name of off the top of my head, but that he created was from a leadership project. So he showed up for his article in the Capital, actually describes the story wonderfully, that he rode his bike to the retreat for Leadership Anne Arundel. And at that retreat, they have to figure out what their class project's going to be. Well, this other guy rode his bike to the retreat, and they both had these challenges with, coming from wherever and the bike lanes that this or that or the other. And so they collaborated on that project that's turned into its very own standalone nonprofit now. But he had just retired from Northrop Grumman and was going through the class to figure out what he wanted to do next.
Again, I've got another friend that I work with on a couple of boards, Bruce Morgenstern. I don't know whether he did the same thing.
He's our program committee chair. He's on our board. Yeah, he's
retired,
exactly.
And
he's very busy now.
He's got his fingers everywhere.
Yeah, he's a great example. Yeah, same thing.
I jump into the volunteer center. I jumped into the signature program at Annapolis High, and he's right in there.
Absolutely. No, he's a great example as well, who just, goes with gusto from what he, the relationships and network that he's built in his Leadership Anne Arundel experience. He carries that with him everywhere he goes. And he's a tremendous LAA stakeholder.
Who's your most famous grad?
That's a good question. I mean, it depends.
Was it the most notorious, maybe the most notorious? I don't know. Define notorious.
I mean, there's so many. You look at pretty much any organization, and depending on who you know from where and when. I mean, so many from the community college.
Yeah, I'm going through all the elected officials we've had. I mean,
so many. Yeah,
I know Dawn Lindsay's a graduate.
Dawn Lindsay
is the president of Anne Arundel Community College.
Absolutely, she was one that I was thinking of. Yeah, but if you look at Anne Arundel Community College, many folks through Anne Arundel have gone through that program as well as the medical center. Many folks from the medical center have been through. Rick Hutzel's been through the program. We have this great event, wonderful event coming up on June 24th, and it is the 25th anniversary of the organization, and it's also the graduation for our 2 current classes. Both the flagship 19 and the Neighborhood Leadership Academy 19 will be graduating, but for this one, because it is the 25th anniversary of our graduating classes, so we started in 93, so the 25th anniversary started last September, and we went through the whole class, so this is the 25th class graduating from flagship, and so we have our founders coming back, which include the hospital, as well as Reliable, and I know I'll leave some of them out, but Reliable was one of stakeholders in starting the organization.
The Baldwins and all.
Yep,
right.
Yep. So they'll be there, and just some really tremendous stakeholders. Buck Distributing, part of our founders, Cheney Corporation, one of the founders. So we'll welcome these founders back. Like I said, the medical center part of that as well.
And it's at Maryland Live, right?
It's at Maryland Live Hotel and Casino, and so that's 5:30 to 8 p.m. on June the 24th. But that will be a great opportunity for folks who maybe don't know where they fit in the organization to come.
Now, is that something that is open to the public?
It is.
Okay.
It is. Yeah, we're encouraging our alumni to come back because it's funny. Having been around for 25 years, there's folks in my class, like for instance, that I went through it in 2006. Some of them I see quite frequently. Some I don't see so much anymore. It's been a while since 2006.
Sure.
So we're really encouraging folks to come back and reconnect with the organization for this, as well as folks, the general public who aren't as familiar with us, to come out and
Who's in your class?
Connect. Julie Snyder was in my class. Paul Shank, who's with BWI. Glenn Smith was with Champion Realty at the time when he went through. Nancy Curran was in my class.
It's funny. Like I said, we know so many people who go through it, and it's become such a bellwether of kind of a rite of passage to Annapolis. I know it's Anne Arundel, but I mean, so many are centered like just right outside of Annapolis, and you know everybody who's been a part of it, and they're very proud of it too.
Yeah. No, definitely, very much so. And we're right now building the class for 2020. So that's the other big thing, that if there are folks who have heard of Leadership Anne Arundel or those who haven't heard of it and are just interested in how they might engage, we start in September. So right now, really through the end of June, we'll be accepting applications for the 2020 class.
And you said there's about 45 people to a class?
Yeah, between 35 and 40. It's multiple days. Some of the days we actually are on a bus. So we do a bus tour. That's part of the Economic Development Day.
Okay.
And then the agriculture tour is a bus tour. So we need really about what'll fit on a bus. So that's why there's a limit to it, is really to keep the class.
Do you have any problem filling up classes?
It's ebbed and flowed over the years. Right now we've got a robust, we've got a robust group of applicants right now, and we certainly welcome more. They have had years where it's been challenging. It is an investment, so there's a tuition fee for it, as well as it's an investment of time. I mean, it's one day out of the month that folks need to be able to commit.
It's a better deal than the National Guard. There's no weekends involved there.
No push-ups.
Right. Yeah.
No, it's a great opportunity. It is, though, that investment. It's funny, the changes over the 25 years. When I went through it, so Griff Hall was the executive director at the time, and he was vigilant about us not being on our cell phones at the time. Now, if you think about how different it was in 2006.
Yeah, there's no smartphones.
Right. So we still had trouble, putting our phones away to really focus on the day, because you've got this one day together with your colleagues, and you want to give attention to your speakers and all that kind of stuff. Well, now fast forward to now with the text and all of that kind of thing, and it's challenging to get folks to commit to a day. We have to be mindful about giving them time when they can check things, because we have to be realistic. People are going to need to check in from time to time. So it's just an interesting.
But do they? And this has been my rant lately. Going in 2006, we had email. Right. We had phone calls. We had everything that we have now. The only thing we didn't really have was instant access to that wherever you go. So if you could devote a day without that, maybe call in at lunch or something like that in 2006, you can do it now. It's just we have no self-discipline.
See, I'm so fascinated by this, because I don't know that it's necessarily self-discipline. With some, it may be that. But the expectation piece is what I'm fascinated by, because as we've gotten faster and faster as a culture, again, if we get an employer to give us one of their people for the day, are they still expecting that they're going to be responsive to whatever else might go on? So we need to not only convince that participant to give us their attention, but whoever else is back at the ranch, if your person is part of Leadership Anne Arundel, it's an ongoing process to really help people get that time away. And we certainly do. We still, it's very much a part of the day that, we expect the time and attention and, unplugging. But I think it's just a much different experience now, certainly than it was in 93 or 94 when they started. So even if 2006, by then we had the phones in that. I mean, when the organization started in 1993, that fascinates me, how much has changed since then.
That's, the little pink while you were out, little slips,
Right.
You came back to that. You didn't come back to emails.
Right. Yeah.
So looking at the whole organization, we know how you do it and what you do, but why? I mean, so what is the point of the organization? I mean, I think when you think about leaders, and we think about what that means, if you ask me what a leader is, and I could go through some presidents or some politicals, elected officials, business leaders, we call them business leaders for that reason, and not just because they lead people, because they lead ideas. So what do people expect to become after Leadership Anne Arundel?
Well, so there's two parts to that. That what we do is really about creating those mindful, proactive, educated leaders, who can think critically around the challenges that they may face in their place of work, in the community overall, because again, some of them come through to work with nonprofits or volunteer capacities, not necessarily their day jobs. So just, really providing individuals with the tools they need to be more thoughtful leaders, to be able to talk to people that they don't necessarily agree with and, make progress in that way. So that's what the program is designed to do, to help, really inspire, develop, and connect our leaders. But then to your point, so what are they supposed to do next? That's part of what's exciting about the next 25 years. I think we've done, as an alumni, speaking more as an alumni than the president and CEO at this moment, we've done a great job with the core programs. I didn't have as much opportunity to connect on the leadership development piece as I wanted as an alumni. So there are lots of networking opportunities to come back together with colleagues, and that was always a great opportunity.
But with that bonding element.
Right, with the bonding element, and with, and networking's a great, positive, but I think there's a lot more opportunity, especially the faster our culture goes, to give our graduates that opportunity to come back and go, okay, how can we continue to develop the tools we need to be thoughtful leaders in a culture, in a pace that's going faster and faster? Those decisions that we all have to make that are on the split of a text or a email communicate, we're all kind of driven to have to move faster and faster, but we still have major challenges and issues that we need to grapple with. So I think that we have an opportunity as Leadership Anne Arundel to have more alumni programming that gives these folks who've been through the original course the opportunity to come back and really mentor each other and, continue to develop those skills so that when we all face, the challenges that we can't even imagine today, we've got the tools we need to be able to come together as a community, listen to each other, ask the tough questions, and really be able to come to some thoughtful results. And
now, you mentioned you were with the Anne Arundel Chamber of Commerce when it had a different name.
A bunch of years ago, yeah.
That's when I first met you, actually.
Yep.
Had a bunch of A's and a CCC at the end of it.
That was triple A, triple C.
And you moved from there to the Anne Arundel Tech Council, right?
I came on board right after they changed their name to the Chesapeake Regional Tech Council. So literally they did that in January of 2008. I came on board in May of 2008, which was quite an interesting time to come on board to a nonprofit organization. And we had about 200 member companies.
By the way, May 2008 was when I knew that was when we first went into the recession. That was when, in the business I was in at the time, we knew that we were in some shit at the time.
Really?
That's when it all hit, was May 2008. So you starting a job.
May 5th. I started on Cinco de Mayo in 2008, and we had about 200 member companies, all very Anne Arundel County for sure, but even more Annapolis-centric. And so they just changed their name to the Chesapeake Regional Tech Council. And my real task was to broaden us to have more of a regional scope, to really take in, we really covered the Annapolis, Washington, Baltimore triangle. And so moving our
critical sort of like the mass. BWI business partnership area, probably to sort of overlap them.
Right. It was really that triangle, and we were more the center of the triangle, so more BWI, Anne Arundel in terms of our critical mass.
Corridor.
Right. But we would stretch into Baltimore. By the time, so I was there for 7 years. And by the time I left, we had about 300 member companies, and they were really well dispersed between some in Howard, some in Prince George, but a lot in Baltimore and Anne Arundel.
Did your experience at Leadership Anne Arundel prepare you for that? Because, I mean, you're coming in at, like Tim said, at ground zero to do that at a pretty horrible time to do it and expand it. I mean, do you think that?
Absolutely.
In the tech industry too.
Yeah, in a couple of ways. Quite literally, the some of the materials that we went through in our opening retreat, I carried with me. I mean, there's the fourfold way was this one piece that talks about staying present and being, fully present to open to outcomes. I mean, it's a leadership
mindfulness
philosophy, that I would carry with me. And then Griff Hall, who was the executive director when I went through the program, he was just starting his own leadership practice at the time and became my coach because I had never been an executive director of an organization at that time. And so he, really coached me through the first couple of years of my role at CRTC. So that his whole, leadership approach was just absolutely invaluable during my first few years. And then I kind of continued on. And
what drew you to Leadership Anne Arundel?
So that's fun.
It was the ad on Craigslist, wasn't
it? Yeah, right. So that's a really fun question because having just talked about CRTC, it's very similar in a lot of ways to the opportunity that the Chesapeake Regional Tech Council had, which is that there's this really tremendous core and value in the program itself, but a huge lot of opportunity that we haven't even begun to tap. So in that, as I talked a little bit about the alumni opportunity, our core programming at LAA is so strong, but there's a lot more we could do to continue to drive connection moving forward. So I really love that kind of opportunity to take something to that next place. And again, with 25 years, we're at this kind of neat place where we can look back at 25 and then try to imagine what we could be in the next 25.
It's a launching pad.
Yeah, and that was similar to CRTC, where it was like, okay, there's this really rich environment. Now where can we go? And that's what to me is really exciting about LAA is that when you look at just the richness of those 1,400, alumni, and most of them I think are still here in this area, but some of them are in California or other countries or wherever. And finding with our next kind of frontier, we'll be adding an online community to the brick and mortar community that we have, so that folks can connect, across from their desk. They can tweet and text and do
right.
So other ways to connect. So it's not all necessarily in person. To bridge the gap between, folks who are in fractured lives. You can't necessarily make it to every event. You shouldn't have to necessarily come to a networking event to still benefit from that network that supports you. So that kind of being able to build that is similar to what I did at the CRTC.
Right.
Well, it seems like a true network too. I don't like networking groups.
Right.
Whenever someone asks me to a networking breakfast, I'm like, I'm done. I don't want to go. And it's like speed dating where someone's like, they give me their card, I give them, my card, and then 2 weeks later, I'm getting a phone call to sell me something. I'm like, this isn't networking. I don't want to do this. But I found, I was on the board for years of the Annapolis Business Association. And I loved it because it was real people who weren't looking to sell anything. They're looking to increase business for everybody. They're looking to raise all the boats. And it was brick and mortar owners. It was restaurateurs.
That's what I think when we first worked together, because I was working on the Taste Buds.
That's right. Yeah, that was
fundraiser that we did. Yeah,
that's
with
right.
Aaron. Yeah,
Aaron Brunst at the time. Yeah,
Yep.
Aaron McNaboe. But those were people like Aaron and all these other people that 15, 16 years later that I can still call or I can email or I can text or I'll post something on Facebook and they're busting on me. But I mean, it wasn't that shallow networking that you get at these organizations that everyone knows who they are.
Right.
This was where you had a true bond. And I'd look out for their business. They'd look out for mine. If I had to, spend money with someone, I'd rather do it with one of them to support them because I had a vested interest in them because I felt, a measure of closest to them. Yep. So I feel like something like Leadership Anne Arundel is very similar in that manner, is that just like pledging a fraternity or sorority or, you're in the military, that you have a bond with the people with whom you go through a process.
Right.
It's not just where you meet once a week, but you're meeting each other every week. You're going places. You have your projects together. You have all these things.
Well, and you're having an impact on your local community too, which I think is that, that's the kind of the meaning that really, it's not like just the general networking here, let's exchange cards. It's you're with people like Bruce Morgenstern and John Cornyn, who are creating these organizations that are serving our local community, kind of circling back to what attracted me to this role. Born and raised here in Annapolis, and I had the opportunity to live in New York City for a bunch of years, which was a great kind of early chapter. Just prior to...
You were an actress, yes?
I was. Yeah. Just prior to this role, though, I had worked for the Maryland Department of Commerce for a couple of years, which was a tremendous opportunity to see the whole state. But I felt oftentimes as I was getting on the road in the morning to drive away that I really wanted to have more of an impact on my local community where I was born and raised. So to have this opportunity with Leadership Anne Arundel to be able to dig in deep with, again, for-profit, nonprofit, government, really understand my community and then help connect folks to find their best connection to have that impact.
Well, that's admirable. I mean, as Tim sort of mentioned with, Annapolis Business Association at the time was, more concerned about the organization as a whole and bringing everybody up. And I just right around the corner from where we are, we're at Two Producers Studio, but on Lincoln Court, I think it's
on
Quarter Drive. Right.
Mm-hmm.
But not far from here up in the, it's not the Arts District, it's the
Design District.
The Design District.
Yes.
I know, they've got all these crazy names, but there's a company called Gallery 3976, and I may have screwed up the numbers, but they know who they are. But it's essentially a giant warehouse with, say, little cubicles of different artists.
Oh, cool.
And they make their own hours and so on and so forth, and they will help each other out. I mean, if somebody wants to buy a Joe Barson piece of art and he's not there, somebody can bring that up and sell that.
Well, Art Farm just moved up here as well.
Yes.
I just went to their opening this past weekend.
Yeah, on Friday, Saturday.
Yeah, and they just opened as well. So it really is quite a
it seems like the Arts District is moving a little bit west, out on a little bit west on West Street a little bit.
Yeah.
So it's we've got
expanding overall. I just think it's really blossoming.
It really is, but it's I think it's neat that you wanted to come back and work on the local. On the local community for sure.
It's more fun. I'm not going to lie.
It's the stuff that I really love. So when I was, after I'd left the CRTC, I was working at an advertising firm actually in Baltimore prior to Commerce, and felt really disconnected from the community. And that's when actually I got my buddy Liz Thibodeau to help me relaunch the Ignite Annapolis event. Because
all right, let's get into that.
Let's take a break and we'll come back and talk about a day in the life of Leadership Anne Arundel, and we'll talk about Ignite Annapolis too.
Okay.
Of all the ways our customers can describe us, nothing means more than being their favorite.
Zachary's is the gold standard in customer service.
This is the absolute best jewelry buying experience of my life.
The annual holiday party for their customers is beyond a memorable experience.
They have the most exquisite jewelry, and the store atmosphere, it's the best around.
They listen, and there's never any pressure to buy.
We've purchased fine jewelry from different big names in the Baltimore area, but we were treated like family at Zachary's.
You'll not find a nicer group of people. They have my business for life.
Best in Annapolis is simply not enough.
Zachary's has been a part of many of my life's best memories.
After it's all said and done, there's one jewelry store that's my absolute favorite.
Zachary's. Online at zacharysjewelers.com. More than a jewelry store, a jeweler.
And we're back. So we've talked about the program itself and what the purpose is and what the goals are. So I'm just curious. So what, if you decide to participate in this, what does the program look like? How long is it? What do your days look like? What are the projects? I mean, you're going in a bus. Where are you going? So what do people expect?
I'll stick with the flagship program because there are multiple programs to LAA, and we could really talk for a very long time about the program altogether. But the flagship program is the one that we're filling the class for 2020 right now. So to stick with that one, that's the one that starts in September with a 2-day retreat. And that's really when you get the foundation in terms of your leadership development. So approaches to leadership specifically. Then after that, and you get to meet your colleagues, and you learn about potential projects that you could do. So you break into small groups of around 6 people or so to take on a project. One of the really fun things is we reach out to nonprofits across the area and give them the opportunity to pitch a project to this class. So for instance, a handful of nonprofits will give us RFPs of here's a specific task that we need or project that we need addressed at our nonprofit.
Okay.
And some government agencies also will put together some approaches. And that's when the class can decide if they want to take on those projects, or they can come up with their own project. But that's a year-long project that they will be in a small group working on throughout the year. That's, for example, what
John Corrin did. He came up with the master plan for bicycling in Anne Arundel County.
And he did that himself. That was his own idea, but he just as easily could have gotten a proposal from X nonprofit in the area who says, we have this problem we need some help with.
Right.
And so these different groups work the whole calendar year, or the whole school year through that. So they start in September and they graduate in June, and they will end up with a result for that project. Some of them go on to be, Heart Smart is a program that came out of Leadership Anne Arundel.
That's the app, right? Is that the app that...
I don't know if there's an app now too, but it started as providing defibrillators in local, in specific places.
Okay.
And there are literally people whose lives have been saved because these defibrillators exist.
I think that there is an app now. But basically, you can do it. It will alert you. If you're trained in CPR, it'll alert you that somebody needs it real quickly. It'll tell you where the nearest defibrillator is and how to quickly get there. So somebody can actually start to do the CPR within the first few minutes before EMS gets there, because they figure, if you drop right here, I'm a lot closer to you than the firehouse down the road is, so I can start CPR right away.
Well, LAA, I don't think can take credit for that one, but
and I have AT&T, so
the program.
The guy's
I honestly, I think you said Heart Start though, because I think Heart Smart. I think it came from that. I think the people that did that had said that there was something like that. But
so these are the type of programs, John Cornyn's organization, Heart Smart, that come out of a year's program of LAA. But so that's just the opening retreat when people figure out what their project's going to be. They're in their group, their project groups. Then each second Thursday of the month, we get back together, and there's a different theme for each day. So there's public or government day where you learn, about the inner workings of government. There's cultural arts day. There's public economic safety, development day, health and public safety.
And you have speakers come in
so we do
presentations.
We try to make it as experiential as possible. So there's environment day where you're literally out, with the river keeper and learning about, you're trumping through the woods and learning about, the actual environment as opposed to sitting and watching a PowerPoint of it. And so all these different themes, you have a full immersion in those days, and then you come through to a retreat we're actually coming up to next week is the retreat for this year's class, where we really try to pull it all together, and you've got all these relationships with folks that you've been through each of these days. So there really is no exact same day for leadership, because it depends on what the theme is and all the different folks. That's another way where we pull in the community, because they're different community members who are, are participants in putting the day together. So there's folks who, for instance, who've put together the Cultural Arts Day, who come from the Cultural Arts Foundation, come from Maryland Hall, and come together and really show lots of different facets of this arts community.
Now, are there multiple projects for the? Are there multiple projects that go on through the year, or is it one project for the entire class?
There are multiple projects. So the class is about 35 to 40 people. The project groups are about 5 to 6 people. So they break into Okay,
and then my other question, some of these projects that you've talked about, Heart Starts and the Master Bike Plan, it seems like a lot more product that can be accomplished than just, a 2-day retreat and 1 day a week. So what are they doing? How are they meeting, and when are they meeting, and stuff like that to actually accomplish the project?
Yeah, it depends on the group. So those are 2 examples that really did have a life beyond that 1 year of LAA. My project class from 2006 did not continue past. We learned a lot in the process, learned a lot about leadership, learned a lot about, it was a transportation challenge, which if I even thought back to what the actual challenge was, I'm sure it's an entirely different challenge today than it was in 06. But we were all around the table trying to really have an impact on this transportation challenge. And we really didn't, what we came up with was not able to make an impact in the way we wanted to. So we went on and did other things. That one didn't go beyond. And some of them don't go beyond the class year. So they're an instrument really for the leadership development regardless. And then some like John's.
It's the process. So
take off beyond there.
But how much time did you spend on your project through the year that you were in your class? It was obviously more than that 1 day a month.
It was. It really depends on the project group. Some people get together a couple of times in the month in between classes. Some, especially, it's a little bit different now because, again, I went through in 06, and people's time and commitments and challenges are a little bit different. So some of it is getting together virtually between classes. So some of that is the leadership challenge, too, is figuring out what everybody's capacity is within that group. You may want to have audacious goals that you want to, capture, but you have to also be realistic with the people that are engaged and what their time commitments are and that kind of thing. So it's definitely connecting multiple times between the days, the leadership days that we have. But whether that's, a meeting in between and then, other virtual connection and stuff like that really depends on the group and what the challenge that they took on.
I've been toying with the idea of doing this for years.
You should do it.
Yeah.
You really
You're being
should.
paid to say that.
You really should. No, it's a really great experience.
I just get concerned again a little bit, as you said, with the time commitment and whatnot. And I think it's just a matter of now I've got some kids out of college, maybe I might be a little bit more able to.
Well, and that's a perfect example. Exactly what you just described. There are, as my kind of concept around this is seasons of engagement. In that, when I went through LAA, I went through with folks who a handful of my friends and myself didn't have kids at the time, had time to network after, go to a happy hour after our full day together and all these kinds of things. We had very different lives. A couple of years later, started having their kids, they were coaching soccer, their time commitments really shifted. And so that's one of the things looking into this next chapter of LAA that we're excited to look at our alumni and figure out how we can match engagement opportunities to ever busy schedules and that kind of.
Where are you looking to go in the next 25 since you're springing out of your first quarter century?
Where are we looking to go? Well, really, that engagement, really invigorating the alumni, bringing them along, because the program itself is just such a solid, really valuable program. It's more how do we connect the dots, help our graduates through their seasons of engagement from when they are completely time challenged with raising their kids and all that to when they're retiring and looking for what is next and how they can give back and everything in between, to be able to have more custom opportunities for our alumni to remain engaged with the organization.
This reminds me of being like a college alum where once you leave that, you're starting your life and that you don't have the opportunities to give back to the school or even participate back in the school. And then when you get older and your kids get out, then all of a sudden, you're back at school. I'm on the alumni board for my college. I see that the people who are in their 50s and 60s, they're all of a sudden piling back every year for the alumni weekend just because they have the time and their kids are gone. And I think this is sort of something that you go through as a organization, and it's an accomplishment. And then you go back to work and you apply what you've learned. And it'll probably be like 2 or 3 years before, maybe even longer before you say, now I want to touch base. I want to go back and I want to connect with those people. I think the example, again, back to college and alumni, that if you ever had a problem finding a job or if you had to redo a resume or whatever, if you contact your university or college's career planning and placement, they will help you because as an alum, their services apply to you as well. And I see Leadership Anne Arundel sort of the same thing, is that once you go through the program, that when you come out, and
especially in mentorship, and it's changed too. If you look at when we started 25 years ago, people stayed in the same job by and large for a really long period. That's not the case anymore. So really there's a great opportunity for LAA to continue to help folks reimagine their next act through this network of folks that are, supremely well connected. So.
The connections are great. I mean, I know my daughter had considered the Peace Corps for a while, and that I understand is a very connected organization that, they're very tight with the Peace Corps graduates that will come back. And it's like if you apply to a job at a Peace Corps senior management company that you don't start at HR, you start, you pass through HR and you're in the middle of the line. And the whole networking thing.
Well, it's not only that, it's also because you've proved yourself and they know that you've gone through a program that is giving you tools to apply in the position you're in. So it's not just like, oh my God, they went through the same program, let's bump them up. It's because you know that they can perform and that they have probably better tools than the average candidate.
Yeah, there's a credibility there.
Exactly.
And that I think is very similar to the LAA experience.
Before we wrap up, we sort of blurted it out a little bit ago, but I want to talk about one of my favorite days in Annapolis that you're responsible for, I believe, with Ignite Annapolis.
Yeah.
Did you start that? How did that? I mean, I've often heard. I know the TED Talks. That's the thing.
Explain Ignite.
But Ignite is where they put you on stage. They give you 5 minutes to speak, and you produce 15 slides that are on
20 slides.
20 slides on a predetermined
15 seconds rotation
cycle. It just goes. And you've got to keep up with it, or if you're smart, you have slides that don't have any bearing on what you're saying, and they just roll.
Yep.
And it can be any topic. It can be humorous. It can be thought-provoking. It can be sad. It can be. I mean, we've heard people about a woman who was caring, Liz, who was caring for her father who was suffering from Alzheimer's. We had bullying in
Poignant
schools.
Is what you're looking for, not sad.
Yeah, I mean, you walk out and you're like, wow. And I mean, you've got some that are absolutely great. You've got a couple that are, stinkers.
Right.
And you never really know, but it's a wonderful evening. But you started this. Now, this was the fourth one, I believe, we've had here.
We just had the fourth
in
one.
March.
Right. And I co-founded the Ignite Annapolis with Jennifer Troy, and she was part of the Chesapeake Regional Tech Council back in the day, and in 2009.
Is she related to David Troy?
She is. She is Mrs. David Troy.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and very much her own unto herself. So not just Mrs. David Troy, but yes, very involved with the environment here locally. And they lived in Severna Park at the time when they were involved. Dave was very involved with the Baltimore Ignite. So there was a Baltimore Ignite program, and Jen had been, very engaged in that Ignite as well. And they were in the process of moving to Baltimore, and she really thought Annapolis needed to have an Ignite. So she came to me at the Tech Council and said, we should, let's do the first Ignite in Annapolis. And so that was 2009. With the Tech Council, we were able to get, some tech support and get people. It's a pretty heavy lift if you've never done it before. And especially, again, going back at the time, with video and all that, videos become easier to do in some respects than it was in 2009. So we did the first one, and then I didn't have the bandwidth to continue them after that. And so we kind of did the first in 2009, and they kind of were quiet since then. It's going back to kind of what it is. It's an international phenomenon. So it started in California, kind of like the TED Talks did. You request a license to do it. So the
TED Talks are kind of like a cult, even. I mean, I know people have done the TED Talks, and you have to stay in like their facilities.
Well, there's also the TEDx. So the TEDx program is more similar to Ignite, where it's a license that you can apply to do a TEDx or apply to do an Ignite in your local area. And when you apply, there's no fee for it. They give you the license to do it. So you have the brand essentially, and they give you like a kit of marketing stuff. And then you have to raise funds to do it in your local community. The rule of Ignite is nobody gets paid. You can raise funds to pay for expenses. And then if there's any additional funds that you raise, you give those to a local charity. And then when you do another event, you start from scratch and you raise funds all over again. So a few years ago, whatever year that was, I had been working in an agency in Baltimore and was just feeling disconnected from my local community. And so I reached out to Liz Thibodeau, who had been my partner in crime at the Tech Council and all of our video production. And she had helped do the video for the original one in 2009. And I said, okay, Liz, I really want to bring this back. Will you be my partner in crime? And she was just launching her business at the time, Thibodeau Media Group. And so she jumped in and said, sure. So we did it, the two of us. That first year back was 3 years ago in the basement at Maryland Hall. Right. And we were kind of like, I wonder if anybody will come.
Standing room only.
Well, we did the walkthrough with the space. I had looked at what the fire code was down there, so I thought I knew how many tickets we could sell, and it was like 200 something. Well, we walked through with them like a week before, and they were like, oh yeah, you can have more than 150 people in here. And we were like, what? Because we were already to that. So we had to close. So we were sold out a week in advance. So okay, so the next year we brought it back, had a couple more co-organizers with us, and it went up to the upstairs and packed the upstairs. Didn't quite sell out, but packed it. And then this past year, we sold out upstairs about a week in advance. So
it's just phenomenal. And then the topics, I think, are just so creative that the people come up with. And I know there was the gentleman from, I believe he was from North Carolina, that came up for it this year, who was talking about black men and health.
Oh, yeah.
And how he said that, how women always tell their stylist everything.
Yep, he's local here now. Yeah, he maybe have been from North Carolina, but he's local here. Live Chair is his business that he's starting with exactly that concept.
And he said, you tell your barber, hey, I'm feeling a little bit like this, and and it was fantastic. And I just saw another one from Ignite, and I don't remember her name, but she was talking about re-entering the workforce from people that have been in prison.
Oh, yes.
And to put that, Vanessa. Now I noticed that she's partnered with, that's gotten off the ground because she was sort of trying to get some fundraising at that time, and that's gotten off the ground. And the city of Annapolis is doing I think they're calling it like a second chances type of a program. Oh, cool. Which is really very, very neat when you see that.
Yeah, the mantra is enlighten us, but make it quick. So all of them, the fun thing is, if there is a topic that's just not, really up your alley, it's only 5 minutes. So you can just kind of, hang out and wait for the next one. And so there's 8 of them in the first act, then there's an intermission where everybody gets to kind of exchange ideas, and then another 8 of them.
Yeah,
so
I mean, there have been some that brought you to tears. Again, we'll look at Andrea Chambly, who was there this year talking about her husband, John McNamara, who got killed at in the Capitol shooting. But one year there was a horrible one where it was like I was putting spreadsheets up there, and I'm like, oh man.
Yeah. Well, we've been so fortunate the last couple of years. We've had Rob Tim from R&R, who's been our MC, and he, after Andrea's, he just was so brilliant. He just said, let's take a break, because that was right before intermission, and it just gave everybody that chance to just kind of absorb.
To come
just to absorb that.
Yeah, following that would be a little bit intense.
Right. Well, we purposely put that at the end of the first set, but it was just such a welcome opportunity for people to just kind of take that in and
get a glass of wine and
exactly.
reset.
It's an amazing thing, this exchange of ideas. That the internet was supposed to be that exchange of ideas and everything, and it just turned into a shitfest of people commenting and yelling at each other, and it's not what it was supposed to be. And you're finding that the ideas are coming from events like this, TEDx and Ignite, that's where the ideas are happening. And there's been some really fascinating ones. Sure, there's some first timers or people who are nervous and, you're kind of like, all right, how much longer? But then there's some that you're just like, God, I wish that was like 50 minutes. I'd watch just another hour of that.
But see, what I think is interesting about that is I'm going to circle right back, sound like a one note here, but to LAA, because it's about, we don't know where we're going. Like you talk about what the internet was supposed to be. We didn't know when we started with the internet where this crazy train was going to go, right? So we now have text and we have the what is it, 1 second our ads are supposed to be now, or 6 seconds,
Sure.
or whatever those. It's going to continue to evolve. So whether it's from an Ignite talk or whether it's from a specific organization that creates another event that inspires people, it's that need to continue to have human beings come back around and get around the table with each other and figure out the challenges that are before us. Because the internet is, if you ask me, a big challenge that's before us that we need to figure out how to continue to be human, and not fall into the comment section of, step away from the internet and continue to engage with each other. So that's, to me, why there will be forever an evergreen need for organizations like Leadership Anne Arundel to help people continue to be human with each other, and figure out.
I find that more and more often with the young kids today, especially. I'm starting to sound like a little bit of an old fart, but, they would much rather, communicate by text or, email is very passé at this point.
Right.
I remember I had my daughter, I said, well, I texted her a thank you for the Christmas present.
Right.
I'm like, well, write a letter. It says, well, can I just maybe send an email? And I'm like, no.
Right, right. But so exactly. These things, whether they're pendulums or, they don't stay the same. We're going to have, this cycle evolve, and these young folks will need to figure out how to problem solve, how to communicate. And that's where, organizations like LAA or events like Ignite continue to help bring people together, to have those conversations, to communicate. It's an evergreen.
But it's the physicality. I think that's a big part of it. I think what the internet has done, it has stripped out any connection that you have with somebody. Right now, you're looking at me, and I can tell if I'm boring you or if I'm not boring you, and I'm picking up on visual cues. And we're exchanging ideas. What do they say? Boring people talk about people. Fascinating people talk about ideas.
Right.
And I think that the internet, people talk about people. And people are on there, and your daughter doesn't get visual cues or vocal cues from people when they send texts, and we fall victim to that sometimes.
Yeah.
He'll send me something sometimes. I'm like, all right, don't be an asshole. And I'm like, oh, he wasn't. It was just that's what I took the tone to be.
Right.
But there's very few things that inspire me that I'm reading anymore that I'm seeing on the internet, and the inspiration I'm seeing is coming from the TED Talks, where or Ignite or something, where you come out and you're just like, man, that moved me. I want to find out more about that. I want to find out.
So here's the interesting thing. It's like layers, right? Because you've got Alex, I want to say Alex Pline, I think is how I say his name, who did one on
biking?
Well, he did his on city planning. I think he was the gentleman that worked with
John Corn.
With John, yeah. So I think that goes circling back to that LAA experience. Yep. But he did his Ignite talk was around city planning. Well, what he was brilliant to do was also do a blog post that he launched the next day. So people who saw his Ignite talk we put the link to the blog post that had, in 5 minutes, how much detail can you really put in there? Right. But he was able to go on a deeper level. So you look at where we are now with the internet or with video or, with these tools, if we can, again, have a thoughtful approach to how we use these and continue to get the human factor engaged in it, then you can find the best way to use these tools like the internet to go to that next place in education. So, you hear his 5-minute talk, and then if it sparks something in you, you've got a place to go to get a deeper dive. So, that's a brilliant use of the internet as opposed to what a lot of it is used for today, that is, gets you down into a lower level.
I think that brings us back to the quality of what leadership is, is saying, are leaders able to transcend the current trends? Because we always look at trends as if there's something good, and a lot of times they're not. And you look and say, when it comes to business, for example, what's a business trend and what's important in business? I saw someone say something the other day saying, well, we're a 24/7 society. I'm like, well, why? Mm-hmm. Why do we have to be?
That goes back to the time commitment for leadership. So when we're talking about, if you have to take a day away and helping your employer or whoever else might be the ones texting you and emailing you, helping them understand the value of being able to take that day away, to have a more thoughtful approach, whether it's about a trend, is this trend where we should be going, being able to remove yourself from that flow and be able to take in new information and process it in a meaningful way, to then be able to jump back in and be that much more effective and efficient and all of these things when you're, back in the reality that we all have to.
Yeah, but I think, it goes to, like you were saying, is to be able to take information and disseminate it and among yourself where you're able to break it down. But I think about 6 months ago, there was a company in France that they turned off their email at 7 p.m., I think, or 6 p.m., that they shut down their email and didn't turn it back on until 6 a.m. the next morning. And people go, well, great. They value, the family time. They value a balance. And they're like, well, yeah, sure, there's that part of it. And they also, what they said, but also, and more importantly, is what is the quality of a decision that our employee is making at 8 p.m. when they're trying to get the kids to bed, or they're waiting for the water to boil for pasta, and they're checking email on their phone, and they're making decisions. What is the quality of the thought that they're giving the information that's in front of them? That instead of sitting at your desk or taking information in a meeting and we're discussing it and you're thinking it, we're now doing it in quick snatches. You're in Lion at Giant and all of a sudden you're answering an email. Well, how much did you think about that? And what good came from that? And what's the quality of your work? And I think what a good leader is identifying is how do we turn people, just develop these habits where we want to make them more mindful and more thoughtful and more productive. And productive just doesn't mean, all right, you're working 12 hours, 6 days a week, because, that's just FaceTime at that point. But, what is leadership? What do they bring to the table for a company and how you develop that? And I think we've lost that with the immediacy of everything. So, that's why LAA always impressed me, is because everyone I know who came out of that, they're all thoughtful, efficient, productive people in their designated areas of expertise. And that always impressed me. I don't know if the LA attracts those people or if it's that they are modified and they come out that way.
Right. Maybe a little bit of both, but, helping to give them the tools that they need to be even more so. But we also attract that, folks who are open and interested in that kind of professional development. But I think that, to your point, I think that's what is so important about having organizations like LAA for the future, is that these questions aren't going away. We're going to have more challenges. As fast as we are from 1993 to now, it's not slowing down anytime soon. So how these, same issues we're grappling with today, how they evolve and what we're going to be grappling with 5 years, 10 years, 20 years from now, we're going to need some, really thoughtful, educated, prepared leaders to help us, with that.
And connected. And I'm not talking about connected just for the sake of networking where, I want to sell something down the line or I want to push my product and you're there. But it's that connection where you have those people that they may not even be in the same industry that you are, but they're in Annapolis or they're in Crofton or they're in Odenton. And you can call them saying, like, I'm hearing this about this local trend, or where are you with, with the rent that you're paying, the lease that you're paying? Yeah. Is that you have people that you can actually trust, that you went through a common experience, and that you have the same values when it comes to what you want to get out of your business and what you want to provide for the local community. Yeah. And I can't think of any other organizations that provide that same sort of, bent.
Yeah. No, it is. It's unique in the type of organization. We are fortunate to have other organizations. I actually am going in a couple of weeks to Tulsa, Oklahoma, to meet with a bunch of...
I like Tulsa.
Yeah, I've never been.
I like it, actually.
The Association of Leadership Professionals is having their conference there. And so I'll get to meet with folks like myself in leadership organizations across the country and really get to learn, from, how their organizations...
what's working and what's...
And I'm very excited about that because, again, it's definitely a unique organization in our community.
Ideas.
Yeah. But we get to go face to face and learn from each other about, how to bring some of that back.
Did all the leaderships come about the same time as, were we one of the first ones or were we a latecomer?
I don't know that we were a latecomer. I see, and this is a very anecdotal, just from what I've, looking at other folks' websites, there's like 30 anniversaries. I've seen a 50th anniversary. Okay. So they're in there. So we're not necessarily a latecomer.
So this isn't something that Ben Franklin established that, we just jumped into or anything like that.
And we have Leadership Maryland too, right?
Yeah, Leadership Maryland, is the state entity.
Umbrella.
So they travel all over the state. So it's a different, landscape. Most of them are, it's whether it covers a city or a county or a state, it's, a specific...
Yeah, it would have to be chapters, because, how would people get together and come from Oakland, Maryland, or, Ocean City or Snow Hill?
They're generally around, specific, landscape.
Fantastic. Well, where do we learn more about Leadership Anne Arundel, and how can we sign up? Kris has the application right here for me.
Thanks for asking. Yes, leadershipaa.org is our website. So there's lots of information on there. We are transforming our website right now as well. So it's going to grow and be have a lot more community opportunities on there in the fall. So that's our kind of summer project. But leadershipaa.org has the application for Flagship, which is, again, right about to the end of June. We're accepting applications.
Okay, that's the primary one that to get involved. That's the I would say the starter class, if you will.
It's the original program that we started with 25 years ago, and it is the one that we're best known for, and that's the one that's most comprehensive in terms of it's the longest program. It goes the whole kind of school calendar year,
right.
And really travels all the different topic matters, and then
And then, of course, you can go up to Maryland Live Casino and Hotel, or maybe it's Hotel and Casino.
It's Hotel and Casino, yes it is, on June 24th, 5:30 to 8 p.m.
And that would be the day before the 25th.
Exactly. That's which is what. Yeah, it's the 25th celebration on the 24th of June. But yeah, and that's open to. We'd certainly love to see alumni that have maybe not been around for a while. So we'd love to see them. We'll be celebrating the 2 graduating classes. Founders will be there. Sponsors will be there, and certainly the general public. If there's folks who are interested in leadership and aren't familiar with the organization, we would love to welcome them. It's like the ideal time to understand. What we do. We'll have a opening video that'll really help to folks understand the opportunity. So. It's
awesome.
a not to be missed event.
Awesome. Kris Valerio Shock, thank you very much for,
I
would say coming in, but we're like sort of invaded
you set this
somebody
up.
else's space.
I'm a big fan of Two Producer Studios. I watch Two Producer Tuesdays religiously.
On LinkedIn and their Facebook page.
There's a lot of alliteration going on there.
It is. And this is going to be our hangout for the summer. We're going to be July and August. I'll have a desk here at Two Producer Studios. So this is where LAA will be.
Oh,
very nice.
Through the summer. So,
very nice. We should get a desk here.
Yeah, well.
We should. They do have extra desks.
A little distracted. We get a little unfocused.
All right. Hey, well, until the next time, make sure that you're following us every place that you need to follow us. We're at the Maryland Crab, or at MD Crabs Podcast on Twitter.
You got that.
Yeah. Rolled that right off the tongue.
Yeah.
Email us at info@themarylandcrabs.com. Facebook, you can find us at the Maryland Crabs Podcast. Give us ratings or reviews because they always do help. And I guess that's about it. We'll see you next time.
All right. Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
This has been the Maryland Crabs Podcast with Tim Hamilton and John Fernay. Sure to follow them at all the regular places, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and online at themarylandcrabs.com. Take a moment to rate us on iTunes. Now, get the hell out of my kitchen. Seriously, go!
You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.